The Arabian Sea is dark and calm. The IRIS Sahand, an Iranian Moj-class frigate, is running northwest at 14 knots, heading home after a port visit to Karachi. Her crew of 175 is in standard transit posture, some sleeping below deck, some rotating watch positions, some eating in the mess. Nobody is at battle stations. Nobody has reason to be. What they do not know is that 800 feet beneath them, a USS North Carolina, a Virginia-class attack submarine, has been tracking the Sahand for 19 hours, silent, invisible, patient. Her sonar suite has built a complete acoustic picture of the Iranian frigate: speed, heading, engine signature, depth of keel. Every variable needed for a firing solution has been calculated, verified, and loaded. The order comes through. Fire. A Mark 48 ADCAP torpedo leaves the tube. No sound above the surface. No wake visible from the air. Just 3,695 pounds of precision-guided weapon accelerating to 55 knots through 800 feet of dark water. Its guidance system locked. Its target acquired. Its outcome already determined by physics and mathematics and 19 hours of silent patience. The IRIS Sahand never detects it. No sonar alarm, no radar return, no warning transmission from any friendly asset. The first indication that 175 Iranian sailors have that something is catastrophically wrong is the detonation of 650 pounds of PBXN-103 explosive directly beneath the frigate's keel at 107. The keel blast does not hole the ship, it breaks her spine. The Sahand folds, bow and stern rise simultaneously as the midsection collapses downward into the explosion cavity. The aft deck erupts as fuel lines rupture and ignite. A column of fire and black smoke rises 200 feet above the Arabian Sea. The ship that was running at 14 knots 11 seconds ago is now breaking apart. 94 sailors confirmed lost. 41 rescued by Pakistani fishing vessels operating in the area. 40 still unaccounted for, presumed trapped inside the wreckage now resting on the Arabian Sea floor. And the war just reached waters it had never touched before. This is the first time since World War II that an American submarine has sunk an enemy warship with a torpedo. Let that land. Not since 1945, not in Korea, not in Vietnam, not in the Gulf War, not in any of the conflicts, operations, or military engagements the United States has conducted across 8 decades of global power projection. First time since World War II. At the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth addressed it directly. An American submarine operating in the Arabian Sea conducted a torpedo strike on the Iranian frigate IRIS Sahand. The vessel has been sunk. There were no American casualties. This is what it looks like when you threaten American forces and American interests. Precise, lethal, unannounced. Precise, lethal, unannounced. 3 words, chosen carefully, because in submarine warfare, those 3 words are not just a description of what happened, they are a warning about what can happen again, anywhere, anytime, to any Iranian vessel flying that flag on any ocean on the planet. To understand why the IRIS Sahand was in the Arabian Sea in the first place, you have to understand what she had just been doing. 3 weeks earlier, the Sahand arrived at Karachi Naval Base in Pakistan. The visit was announced in advance. Pakistani Navy Chief Admiral Naveed Ashraf personally greeted the Iranian delegation. Joint exercises were conducted. Pakistani and Iranian sailors trained together, ate together, exchanged gifts and formal courtesies. Pakistani state media ran photographs. Iran's Navy is building partnerships, demonstrating reach, projecting the image of a naval force that operates internationally, that has allies, that cannot be confined to the Persian Gulf and isolated from the world. It was a diplomatic mission, a relationship-building exercise, a statement that Iran is not alone. Then it was time to go home. The Sahand departed Karachi on a standard northwestern transit toward the Gulf of Oman, heading home through international waters on a route her crew had transited before. No hostile contacts reported, no threats detected. A routine passage through waters that felt to the men aboard her completely safe. Somewhere on that route, the USS North Carolina picked up her trail and followed and waited, and 19 hours later, fired. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was in an emergency session of the Supreme National Security Council when the news arrived. His statement came within the hour. The United States has committed an act of war against the Islamic Republic of Iran in international waters 1,800 miles from Iranian territory. The IRIS Sahand was on a peaceful transit after a friendly port visit. She posed no threat to any American vessel or interest. This is not a military operation. This is an assassination of a ship. Then the line that matters. The precedent the United States has now set will not be forgotten, not from Iran, not from Russia, not from China, not from any nation that operates warships on international waters. Mark my words, this decision will cost America more than any battle it has ever won. That is not empty rhetoric. That is a precedent argument, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Because here is what actually happened when the USS North Carolina fired that torpedo. Yes, she sank an Iranian warship. Yes, she did it cleanly, professionally, with 0 American casualties and 0 American assets at risk. Yes, from a purely tactical standpoint, it was a textbook execution of submarine warfare doctrine. But she also did something else. She established that the United States is willing to sink enemy warships in international waters far from any active combat zone, not in the Strait of Hormuz, not in the Persian Gulf, not near any American base or asset, in the open Arabian Sea, during a routine transit after a friendly port visit. That is a new rule, and new rules apply to everyone. Russia operates submarines in the Atlantic, advanced Yasen-class nuclear attack submarines that have been tracking American carrier groups for years, sophisticated, quiet, capable. China operates submarines in the Pacific, Type 093 and Type 095 nuclear attack submarines that have been expanding their operational range across the Indo-Pacific, logging more sea hours every year, pushing further from home waters. Both Moscow and Beijing watched what happened to the IRIS Sahand in the Arabian Sea, and both are now asking the same question their defense ministries have been asking since the torpedo hit. If the Americans can do this, can we? That is the precedent. That is the risk. That is what Araghchi meant when he said this decision will cost America more than any battle it has ever won. Not because Iran can retaliate directly. Iran's submarine capability is limited, domestically built boats with limited range and limited capability. They cannot reach the USS North Carolina, but Iran's allies can. By the time the Sahand's wreckage settled on the Arabian Sea floor, the USS North Carolina was already gone. No surface ship saw her, no aircraft tracked her, no satellite caught her thermal signature through 800 feet of dark water. She fired, confirmed the kill, and disappeared back into the ocean exactly as she arrived, silent, invisible, already somewhere else. That is the psychological dimension of what happened in the Arabian Sea, and it may be more powerful than the physical destruction of the Sahand itself. Every Iranian sailor currently at sea is carrying a question they cannot answer. Is there a submarine beneath me right now? There is no way to know. That is the nature of submarine warfare. You don't know you're being tracked until the torpedo hits. The IRIS Sahand's crew didn't know for 19 hours. By the time they knew, they had 11 seconds. The IRIS Sahand was not in a war zone. She was not near American forces. She was not conducting any hostile activity. She was going home, and she still died. That knowledge now lives in the mind of every Iranian naval officer. It changes decisions. It changes patrol routes. It changes willingness to operate internationally. It changes what Iranian commanders are willing to tell their sailors about the risk of going to sea. That is not just a tactical victory. That is psychological warfare at scale, and it costs nothing additional to maintain. The fear is already deployed. It will remain deployed as long as American submarines remain at sea, which is always.
Meanwhile, the IRIS Sahand sinking did not happen in a vacuum. By the time she went down, the United States had already destroyed 11 Iranian warships in the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz, frigates, patrol boats, fast attack craft, naval headquarters near Bandar Abbas struck and burning, docking facilities destroyed, fuel storage eliminated, command and control degraded across Iran's entire southern naval district. Iran's navy is not being defeated, it is being deleted. And the Sahand proves that the deletion is not limited to the Gulf. It follows the Iranian flag wherever that flag goes. The Gulf, the Strait, the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean. Nowhere is safe. President Trump stated it without qualification. We are annihilating their navy. We've taken out ships across the Gulf, now across the Arabian Sea. They don't have a navy anymore. They have boats, and the boats are next. That is not military analysis. That is a statement of intent. And based on what has happened in the last 6 days, there is no reason to treat it as anything other than accurate. Inside Iran, the pressure is visible in ways that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago. The funeral ceremony for Supreme Leader Khamenei, who died during the opening strikes of the American campaign, has been postponed for the 3rd consecutive time. The reason given by Iranian state media is security concerns. The reason understood by anyone watching is simpler. You cannot gather millions of people in Tehran when American aircraft are striking government districts daily. The Supreme Leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran cannot receive a proper burial because the Islamic Republic of Iran is under bombardment. That is the sentence. Read it again. In the bazaars of Tehran, in the apartments of Isfahan, in the shops of Shiraz, ordinary Iranians are living inside that sentence. A clothing merchant in Tehran described it to a Reuters correspondent this week. I open the shop in the morning because I don't know what else to do. If I close the shop, I can't pay rent. If I stay open, I don't know if there will be customers. Yesterday, there were bombs 3 kilometers away. Today, nothing. Tomorrow, I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. That is the reality of the war for the people who are not fighting it, not the generals calculating strike packages, not the admirals tracking submarine positions, not the politicians issuing statements, just a man with a shop who cannot close it and cannot be certain it will still be there tomorrow. The regime's response to internal pressure has been predictable and brutal. Iran's judiciary chief issued a formal warning this week. Those who cooperate with the enemy in any form will be treated as enemies of the state. Translation: do not protest, do not celebrate American strikes, do not speak to foreign journalists, do not organize, do not move. The instrument of that warning is the Basij, 30 to 40,000 paramilitary militia deployed across Iranian cities, the regime's street-level enforcement mechanism. They suppressed the 2019 protests. They suppressed the 2022 protests. They are the reason that military weakness at the top does not automatically translate to political collapse at the bottom. The U.S. military understands this, which is why American and Israeli strikes have specifically targeted Basij facilities, command nodes, and supply networks. Not just the Navy, not just the air defense, not just the missile launchers, the street-level enforcers. Because destroying the military defeats the army. Destroying the Basij defeats the regime's ability to survive what comes after. Beyond Iran's borders, the economic consequences of the Sahand sinking are spreading in ways that affect people who have never heard of the IRIS Sahand and never will. Oil prices have climbed 23% since the campaign began. A container ship was attacked by Iranian proxy forces attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz 3 days ago. Global shipping insurance rates for Gulf transits have tripled. Hundreds of thousands of travelers are stranded across Middle Eastern airports as airlines cancel routes and close booking windows. Markets in Tokyo, Frankfurt, and London opened down this morning. A war in the Persian Gulf is never just a war in the Persian Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz carries 21% of global oil supply. Every day that strait is contested, energy costs rise for a family in Germany, a factory in South Korea, a trucking company in Brazil. The USS North Carolina fired 1 torpedo. The economic shockwave from that torpedo is currently being felt on every continent on Earth. So here's the question that nobody in Washington or Tehran or Moscow or Beijing has a clean answer to. Was sinking the IRIS Sahand 1,800 miles from Iran's shores a decisive demonstration of American reach that will shorten this war? Or did it establish a precedent that will outlast this war by decades, one that Russia and China have now filed away and will eventually use to justify doing the same thing to American ships in the Atlantic and the Pacific? Did the USS North Carolina win a battle, or did she change the rules of every battle that comes after? Drop your answer in the comments. This is the question military analysts in every major capital are arguing about right now, and there is no consensus. I want to know where you stand. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening and why it matters beyond the headlines, hit like. Subscribe if you want every development covered at this level, the strikes, the strategy, the consequences nobody is talking about. And share this with someone who thinks this war is only about the Persian Gulf, because the Arabian Sea just proved otherwise. First time since 1942. One torpedo, one frigate, one question that nobody has answered yet, and a submarine that is already somewhere else. Silent, invisible, waiting.